Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with chicken Salisbury steak. That's right, I've always wanted to try our award-winning Salisbury steak recipe with chicken instead of beef, and I thought it would be pretty good, but it was actually way better than that, which was great news to me, but even better news for the cows. And to get started, I'm going to shock the world and transfer some boneless, skinless chicken breast into a food processor instead of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which I would normally use in something like this. But I assume most people would go with the breast, and I figured if it's good with this, it'll be even better with the fattier, tastier thighs. But either way, to this we will add some breadcrumbs, as well as some dried mustard. We will also do some freshly ground black pepper, as well as a few shakes of cayenne, just to stay in shape. And that's going to bring us to our wet ingredients, which includes a little bit of soy sauce, some Worcestershire sauce, and we'll also do 1 egg, which was very camera shy this time. And then last but not least, we'll finish up with some ketchup. And once we have everything in there, we'll pop on the top, and we will process this by pulsing it on and off until our mixture is coarsely ground. And while we don't want this super chunky, we don't really want a fine puree either. So what I'm shooting for is something that looks about like this. And once you do achieve something similar, what we'll do is transfer that into a bowl, and we'll press and pack that down with a spatula. Since I do like to put a piece of plastic on this, and then refrigerate it until it's nice and cold, which definitely makes it easier to work with. So I pop that in the fridge for about 20 minutes, which also gives our seasoning and flavors time to work themselves in. And then what we'll do is pull that out and moisten our fingers with some nice cold fresh water. And using some nice damp hands, we'll form that into an oval patty, roughly a ½ inch thick or so. And as you well know, by moistening your fingers, the meat won't stick, and these patties will be a lot easier and less messy to form. And then before I head to the stove to brown these, I decided to season both sides with a little bit of kosher salt, which we could have added right to the mixture directly, but I wasn't sure if I was going to need it. And since this was an experiment, I did take a little piece of that filling while it was chilling, and I cooked it up and gave it a taste, and decided I was going to go with a little extra sprinkle of salt on the outside. And once those are set, we'll head to the stove, where we will brown these over medium-high heat, in a combination of vegetable oil and butter. And what we'll do is give these about 2 to 3 minutes per side, or until we get some nice color on them. And by the way, they're going to be mostly cooked through by the time both sides are done. But please keep in mind, we are going to simmer these in the sauce to finish them. So we don't need them fully cooked at this point, and we certainly don't want them overcooked at this point. So once we have those nicely browned on both sides, we'll turn off the heat, and we'll transfer those onto a plate and reserve them. And once that's been accomplished, we'll turn our heat back on to medium-high, and we'll transfer in ½ pound of sliced mushrooms, along with a nice big pinch of salt. And then we'll cook these stirring until they're as dark and browned as we want, which if you're in a hurry can just be a few minutes. But the browner you get these, the tastier your sauce will be. Plus it will also have a more beautiful color. And you can just flip them in the pan or use a spatula to toss them around. But if you want to spend an extra minute, sometimes I'll use the tongs to flip them over individually, just to make sure most of them are browned on both sides. And once we're happy with how our mushrooms are looking, we'll go ahead and toss in some onion, which in my case are the light parts of a green onion, but anything will work. And no matter which you use, we'll cook that stirring for about a minute, just to take off the raw edge, at which point we'll grab our flour and sprinkle it in. And then we'll cook this stirring for about 2 minutes, which as you know is going to toast the flour, and it will lose that raw pasty taste. And yes, you are correct, we just formed a roux. R-O-U-X. And that's it. Once that's been cooked for a couple minutes, we'll go ahead and transfer in our chicken broth. And we'll stir everything together, making sure we're scraping the bottom of the pan with a spatula to ensure all that caramelized goodness dissolves into the sauce. And then what we'll do is wait for this to come back to the simmer, at which point we can add the last set of ingredients, which will be some ketchup, followed by some Worcestershire sauce. And then last but not least, the juice of ½ a lemon, which by the way is something I did not use in the beef version of this, but I might start since it was really nice and added a beautiful brightness. And then once we have all that stirred in, what we'll do is cook this stirring occasionally for another 4 minutes or so, or until it reduces down a bit and starts to thicken up. And once we reach that point and our sauce is looking like this, we'll reduce our heat to medium-low and we'll transfer our chicken Salisbury steaks back in. And we'll give those a generous and thoughtful basting. And then to finish this dish, all we have to do is simmer these in the sauce, basting whenever we feel like it, for about 5 minutes or so, or until our chicken's heated through and fully cooked. And by the way, if you're into a thicker sauce, just simply reduce things a little further before you transfer your Salisbury steaks back in. Or if you want more sauce that's a little thinner, don't reduce it so much. I mean, you guys are after all the kitchen fairies of your chicken Salisburys. And those kind of decisions are always up to you. And that's it. Once we've decided this is cooked long enough, we can go ahead and serve up. But before we do, for presentational purposes, I like to spoon most of those mushrooms up over the top of the steaks, which I think makes for a beautiful and very enticing appearance. And then you know me. If I use green onion bottoms in a recipe, I will almost always use the green parts to garnish the top. And that's it. Our chicken Salisbury steaks are ready to enjoy. So I went ahead and served one up and spooned over a little bit of extra sauce. And then I grabbed a fork and went in for the official taste. Just enjoying this as is, since my mashed potatoes were not ready yet. Oh yeah, bad time management, but we'll get to those. For now, I'm just going to focus on how surprisingly good that was. I mean, I knew it was going to taste good, but the surprising part was just how good the texture was. Since as you saw, I went with the breast, which can often make these kind of things dry and rubbery. But I'm happy to report the breast meat worked out beautifully. Right, my only real complaint at this point was that this was not sitting on a pile of mashed potatoes. So as soon as those were ready, I plated up another one, and I spooned over some more of that amazing mushroom pan sauce. But anyway, that's it, what we're calling chicken Salisbury steak. I'm not sure if this is ever going to become an iconic TV dinner, but if it does, you'll know why. But whether that happens or not, this was a fast, easy, and beautiful version of Salisbury steak, and I really do hope you give it a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.